Revocable trust means it is a changeable trust. You are, generally speaking, in full control over the trust during your lifetime. You can do whatever you want with it. Most clients are doing this because they're trying to avoid probate court, although there are other tools we can throw in there. That's the big one, okay? So, and I personally, as an attorney, I'm very biased towards revocable because I like my clients staying in control. I've seen the opposite happen a lot, and it's bad. The other category, irrevocable. So non-changeable trust. There are exceptions to that, but generally speaking, a trust you cannot change.
Hi, this is Michael Travis with Waterfront Agent Podcast. Today we're here with Joseph Lento. He's an attorney and the owner of Perennial Estate Planning, licensed in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And he specializes in trust drafting and estate planning and help families protect inheritances, minimize estate taxes, and avoid probate. Very important, especially with a lot of waterfront properties that are left and bequeathed to family members. So here we are.
So just to kind of repeat for the listener here. So pretty much what happens is you have 3 kids. One of the children's spouses needs to go to, did you say it was assisted living or was it a long-term care facility?
Assisted living.
Assisted living. And they also have a disabled child.
Yes.
Okay. So, and this can vary by state, but usually assisted living is not covered by Medicaid. Once again, varies by state. Usually it's like a private pay only thing. But with that being said, I can still answer your question the same way, which is how do the other 2 siblings essentially get their share of the property without the forced sale of the property to pay for the care of this child's spouse? And so once again, in that scenario, because they don't have a structure in place right now, correct? Like they're just kind of...
That's correct.
Right.
So maybe it's too late. I don't know.
Yeah. So for them, because they have the thing already in place, they just have to do a straight up purchase. They get an independent appraiser. You can come in, whatever it might be. Here's the price. Here's what the value of her share is. Whether or not you want to try to do a minority share discount, it's up to you. They might audit it. They might question it. But essentially, they're going to have to sell it to the other kids. And like you were saying, there might be tax implications on that sale, depending on the basis of the property and all that. So there's no easy solution to that. It's just straight up, just sell the portion of the property, and then it is what it is.
Unless they don't sell it right now.
Sorry. So the other 2 can keep the property, but I guess what I'm saying is they're buying out the other sibling's share.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So
like the other sibling, because eventually what might happen is because this is their primary, this is secondary or their other property, right? So what's going to eventually happen is, let's say if, that spouse that has to go to a facility, a nursing care, like you were saying, there's a spend down. So they pretty much can't have like any assets besides a very limited financial instrument and the financial accounts. They can't have that second property anyway. So they're going to eventually have to get rid of their ownership of it regardless at some point. So they might as well do it sooner rather than later.
Oh, so from a law standpoint, they would be required to...
They're not required. Eventually, if they want the state to come in to start paying benefits, they need to show them that they have, I believe it's 2,000, I could be wrong here, but I believe they have to have less than 2,000 countable assets. So there's certain things that qualify as non-countable, but for the most part, you can't hang on to the property and try to get state benefits because you'll be above an asset limit threshold for that spouse, for that child. Because the spouses are combined. They look at it as like one economic unit when one of them goes to the nursing home. Now, before I try to jump forward, any other questions on that scenario?
Well, I'm just wondering if there's any sort of thing that has to do with the fact that there's, other challenges with their own other kid, but what if in a situation like that, the other family members really can't buy out the third? Yeah. And I'm assuming you'd have to have some proper sort of assessment to decide what that third is worth.
Exactly.
Can they be forced to sell it as a result? Because the question is whether they sell it or whether they don't sell it, and can they be forced to sell it? And maybe that's a different kind of question. If they would, the 2 others, the 2/3 ownership would be required to sell it or buy her out legally. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are.
So this is more of when you get to the petition sales, that's more of like a real estate attorney question. So I don't want to go too far outside of scope here. But generally speaking, if I was just kind of, for whatever it's worth, There's two things I'm thinking here. Number one is obviously if there's some other way they can private pay in the short term, then of course they can try to retain as long as possible. But because the child is disabled, and we're going to use that in a very broad sense of that term, because how do you define disability and all that? It's a whole different question.
Right.
But let's say they have a qualified disability. There's something called a supplemental needs trust or a special needs trust. And generally speaking, if that's set up for a child, that might be a way to exclude it from being what's called a countable asset, and therefore allow them to qualify for the government benefits without having to either sell the property back to the other siblings or just sell it in general. So that's a caveat there for special needs planning, because the state wants to make sure that children who are disabled are not or are able to be provided for, even if their parents go in that situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, and of course, when we say child, we're not talking that young either.
Yeah. So it's kind of.
Yeah.
So another thing too is like when you talk about disability, sometimes like the onset of the disability. So if it's like a disability from birth, but they're still a full-grown adult, they can still qualify. Whereas if it's a disability that happens later on, it could be different. So yeah.
Okay. So there's things that could be worked out.
Possibility there.
Type of trust situation that someone like you should be consulted and immediately sooner. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So like for me, like from my standpoint, because like I said, I'm more of an estate planning attorney. I should have been brought in before, because was it a parent who gave the property to the kids at death?
A long time ago. Yeah.
Like you were saying, multi-generational. So yeah, ideally the planner would have come in way before then, because what would have happened is, even though the kids might have been able to use and occupy the property, it might not have been considered their property for those purposes. So it couldn't be attached or forced sale or forced buyout. It could have just kind of been held and endowed in a way where that wouldn't have been an issue. But that would have to be done, like you were saying, on the front end of the planning. It couldn't be happen as it's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I see a lot, I mean, you just have parents says, "Oh, we're just going to give the house to the kids. You know, they're going to bequeath it, and and aren't we nice?" But from the kids' standpoint, they don't know necessarily what that means. Exactly. In terms of for them down the road.
Yeah,
and probably not even thinking about it.
And you probably see this too. So part of it's just like, I don't want to talk about dying. Like, that's not fun. So that's one reason, right? Number two is, even if I did want to talk about that, like, it's an awkward conversation to have with my kids, and I don't want to deal with that. And the third thing is, they're just thinking, and like you were saying, maybe they really are just like why would this be an issue? Like, you know what I mean? It's something that happens. Obviously, from our standpoint, because we've seen it go off the rails so many times, it's very obvious to us that's a bad idea. But to them, they might just be thinking, why would they fight? Like, they get along right now. And that's another thing too, is the thing I hear from parents sometimes is everyone gets along great. And that's more of the reason to do it, because if something's going to make people not get along great, it's money. You know what I mean?
Yes. Now, what I understand in the world, there's 100% death rate.
That's what I understand as well. Yeah. Okay.
What's it? 100%.
What happens after, we don't know, but yeah. So,
well, I mean, there could be a 50% return.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not a return on investment, but but these are, I've run into situations. Oh yeah, I just inherited all this money, and then they knew nothing about capital gains or 1031 exchanges or things like that. And I don't know if you get into that so much, and there's reverse 1031s, and there's a lot of things that could be done, but it's good to know that at least there's something that could be done to at least take some of the pain off part of it.
Yeah. And kind of you might be going on this road anyway, but going back to because one of the other examples you gave was like, they're selling it, or they're doing something with it, what's the income tax implications of this, right? Like, how does that work? And so usually what happens is, if it's structured properly, when the parent dies, and if they're retaining ownership for estate tax planning purposes, they also usually get it for income tax planning purposes. So what that means is the fair market value as of date of death becomes the new basis, generally speaking, in the property. So what I usually like to do is, if they're doing that first level drafting, or they're doing drafting where the parent has a trust in place for the kids, I'm of the opinion is to keep it simple. Let the kids decide who wants to buy it from each other, or if no one wants to buy it, it gets sold anyway. And there's no income tax within usually like a 9 month. There's some like wiggle room here, but generally we say like, if they sell within 6 to 9 months date of death, they're pretty much not going to pay any any income tax on that because we just use the sale price as the basis.
Okay, so the base, so the average person can understand the basis when
Yeah.
somebody dies, because I've been asked to do assessments on a property based on the date of the death of somebody,
Yeah.
when it sells.
Yeah.
And the same is with taxes. I mean, with stocks, I have discovered if the
Mhm.
stocks are in a trust, there isn't a bump up basis, which means that the Procter and Gamble stock that was bought in 1930, whatever, is $2. And, and so if you're bequeathed that, suddenly the capital gains on that is insane.
Yeah, if it's not structured properly, right. There are trusts that you can make have a capital gain step up, and there are trusts where it's not going to qualify. So
Right. And I think that people, I didn't even know about that. I mean,
yeah, it's a
it
big
happened
thing.
to me, but it's like and of course, my job as a real estate agent is to be the source of the source, not the source.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay?
Yes. Yes.
Because the source of the source is one that's going to be the source. That will be if there's any problems, it's their problem. But
Yeah. And actually, you make a great point because I've seen this a lot as well, where people will say, "I'm actually they think they're doing the right thing. They're going to say, I'm going to be so proactive. I'm going to actually start gifting away the property now while they're living." There are some scenarios where that once again, very rarely will work out. But what they're actually doing is when they're gifting that share while they're still alive, they get a carryover basis in the property. So they're actually putting their kids worse off if they need to sell it down the road. Where if it was received upon death through inheritance, it gets that step of cost basis. So
when you're saying I mean, I know from a standpoint, like, my family always recommended our parents to gift us $20,000 a year just because
yeah,
it doesn't mean they could, but we would like that, Oh, but by doing that, you save so much taxes. What's really we save it, but that's besides one. But can you do that with property per se? How do you do
yes,
that with
yes, yes,
property?
yes. That's a great point because, like you were saying, if you just try to do it through the deed, that would be a nightmare. Like recording a new deed every year is like 99%, 98%. Like you would not do that.
Right.
But what you could do is this. I guess there's two ways to do it. But what you more commonly see is once again, business entity structure was a family limited partnership or an LLC. More common to be an LLC nowadays. You could gift in increments. Now you'd have yourself or professional give some type of assessment saying, this was worth. So it only really works for the very valuable properties where it would make sense to do these administrative things. And like you said, you get 19,000 per year per donee, married couple, 38 grand, get 3 kids, 38 times 3. You could definitely shift the ownership over time to those 3 kids before you pass away. But once again, if it's gifted during lifetime, it's not getting the step of cost basis at death. So it really only makes
How
sense
are
to
you
do
gifting? How are you gifting?
because they're gifting the shares of the LLC.
Oh, you're gifting shares of an
Yes,
LLC.
yes, yes, yes. And once again, you really see this only working out when people are above the federal estate tax threshold, which right now is 15 million. And then for a married couple, it's effectively 30 million with the right planning. So nowadays, it's very unusual to see that. I mean, don't get me wrong, we get some wealthy people out here, but for most people, because back in the day, it was $1 million. It was, then, the whole 2016 thing came through, 2017. So it's very strange our current estate tax threshold, which is why that type of planning really don't see as much as you used to back in the day.
Okay, so what you're talking about is really something not for the $1.5 million property, it's for the 15.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
these people who have
so I guess I'm just not going to do it on mine.
yeah, all right,
This year.
yeah, right, yeah, like 99.5% or even more than that. Like they're just, I mean, yeah, it's good to kind of know about, but it's one of those strategies where you might hear about it more often than it's actually employed or deployed in practice.
So I think and I think an important thing, something that you probably do, is help because tax laws change all the time.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
may impact how
confusing.
something should be done, and that's part of what you would do to say, oh, this year, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons because the
But
cost of gas is up. So for some reason,
oh my gosh, yeah. And kind of going one more off of that, let's go kind of back to the average family, right? Like a $1.5 million lake house property. And let's say you want to set things up for your kids. So once again, streamlining, avoiding probate. allowing the kids to continue on for your grandkids, whatever, that use of the property, but making sure there's not that stressful situation of who's paying the utilities and the upkeep and the improvements that have to happen over time. How does that all work? So maybe going back to what you were saying, well, the annual gift tax exclusion you get per year, adjust for inflation over time. So what we were talking about was pretty much like, okay, if for most families, for estate tax purposes, it doesn't make sense to actually gift an LLC interest of the real estate to the kids over time because
we're talking $15 million.
Yeah, we're talking unless you have 15 million or more, don't even consider it. It's just not.
Okay.
For most. There are clients who argue, well, what if the estate tax threshold gets cut in half or comes down? Okay, well, what? But we're just talking about right now. Right now, for most clients, it really is speculative to try to do that type of planning. It doesn't make sense. But if you're still looking at that annual gift tax exclusion, the annual amount you can give each year to your kids without any implications on it, what you might want to do is start funding like an endowment fund for that vacation property to pay those future expenses that your kids would incur down the road. So that way they don't feel like they have to, especially if like you have 3 kids, 2 of them are doing okay, but one kid's not doing that well, or maybe he's just not involved in the property, he lives in a different state. If you want to have, no, you don't have to worry about them contributing money to the property, at least during the next 10, 20 years, start funding that endowment fund now for them. So that's not just becoming an issue. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So, I mean, again, even in my family, I had a situation where brother and sister-in-law bought a lake house, but they paid 85% of everything. The other family members barely could do the other, 15%. Yeah. And so everything's all hunky dory, but then you start getting into, we need a new boiler, we need, and it was hard to say, well, okay, you're only going to pay 15% of a boiler, which is like nothing compared to and then the curtains, and then it becomes, well, I want to stay there at Thanksgiving. I said, no, I'm Mr. 85%, and I'm staying there for Thanksgiving, whatever. And then it turns into, when they sell it, suddenly everyone is it's like that show that the producers, right? Everyone owns 100%, right? Everyone owns 100%, and then and then it becomes a problem. But again, they even bought it as an LLC with the intent of making it so that it was something that would be treated as shares.
Yeah,
which is not a bad way of doing
so
it. I think.
That's in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's a direction that's a direction,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I think people don't know about and planning. I mean, it's like somebody told me, well, beyond the one person who said I was 45, there's other people who know differently.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the doctor I saw today. But I think it's something for all people to, it seems like something I should include when I'm selling a property to somebody, to let them think about this in advance.
Right.
I had another sale. Again, the owner knew she was dying. She had a will. She did everything she thought she should do. She had it worked out that nobody in the family was actually getting the proceeds, but one of the family members was going to be the executor. How's that for a great job? And Sierra Club was getting the proceeds, and the cleaner was getting the furniture, and I was selling it, and I was just getting a commission, but nobody talked about the Cadillac that was in the garage,
Yeah.
So I believe the executor said, I think that's my Cadillac. But anyway.
I think so. I think it's my fee. Yeah.
I believe, I have the keys. Look at that. It still went to probate.
Yep.
And it still went to, because it was like, and of course, what I discovered at that point is that a lot of these probate attorneys like to spend a lot of time waiting to, get things done on an hourly basis.
They're paid by the hour, a lot of them.
Paid by the hour or by the month. And in fact, in my family situation, I pointed that out. And, because my mother was the most wonderful lady in the world, and she did everything, right. And it was clear what was happening. And so I stepped in and I said, I think it's time to stop, because there's literally nothing more that you're doing. and they refunded us some money.
Good for you.
You
Good
know,
for you.
but that doesn't always happen.
Oh
Because
no.
they, yeah,
Yeah,
from
no,
what
there
I'm told.
is a whole, and actually, if there's only one takeaway from this whole conversation, anyone listening, it would be that wills are obsolete. If you own real estate, even a basic trust, because like you were saying, wills go through probate court. People think that a will avoids it. No, it is a document designed for probate process. So if you're trying to avoid probate, you need, I mean, there's some exceptions here, but generally speaking, just a simple, basic revocable trust. You don't have to be rich. It is just, it doesn't cost that much to set up. I know I'm biased in saying that, but just do
Okay.
that.
So to tell people like me the difference between a revocable and an irrevocable trust,
Mhm.
besides spelling,
Okay. Okay.
there's an I on one of
Yes.
them.
There is an I and another R. So that is that.
An R and a waste of an extra R. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So let me just like kind of make it as generic as possible. Revocable trust means it is a changeable trust. You are, generally speaking, in full control over the trust during your lifetime. You can do whatever you want with it. Most clients are doing this because they're trying to avoid probate court, although there are other tools we can throw in there. That's the big one. Okay. So, and I personally, as an attorney, I'm very biased towards revocable because
Yeah.
I like my clients staying in control. I've seen the opposite happen a lot, and it's bad. The other category, irrevocable, so non-changeable trust. There are exceptions to that, but generally speaking, a trust you cannot change. So in that one, you see clients do that, generally speaking, when they're trying to start what's called the 5-year look back. So going kind of back to your early conversation about if someone goes to a nursing home and they need benefits from the state. If you do an irrevocable that is structured properly and you transfer property to it, there's a 5-year look back. After the 5 years, the property under current law, could always change the law, but under current law, it's protected. Now, the reason why I don't like that type of trust is because you're giving up control. You cannot be the trustee of that type of irrevocable. There are different types of irrevocables, so that type you can't do. And you can never get the equity, the principal back out of the trust for your benefit during your lifetime. So if you figure out, oh, I need more money for my retirement, or I just want more money to spend on whatever, you can't do that. That money is pretty much locked up unless you try to break it, which I'm not going to get into in this conversation. But so that's why for most clients, do the revocable, don't do the irrevocable. If you do an irrevocable, just make sure that you're very aware of what you're giving up before you do it.
So if you have an irrevocable trust, who
And
manages it?
usually, you're going to name one of your adult children to be a trustee.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if that adult child is less adult-ish.
You don't want to name them, but let's say they are. I usually put a provision in there that says the grantor, the trust maker, which is the parent, the one setting it up, one funding it, they can replace the trustee at any time for any reason
Oh,
without requiring the consent of the trustee. Now, the catch once again is they can't appoint themselves, they can't appoint their spouse as trustee, but that's a pretty good peace of mind fail-safe in the document. So there are
okay, that's
some,
good to know.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have. So if you have working with a pretty good attorney, they're going to put in strings inside the trust that still comply with the laws, but allow them some maneuverability there. So yeah.
Okay. I have had a situation where someone bought a house. It was
Mm-hmm.
cash because it was bequeathed. They were in a trust. The grandparent or the parents, did this. They set it up so that they could buy this with cash. They had money every month, that was paying for expenses, and everything was wonderful.
Yeah.
And their financial advisor took care of it. It was a little fishy because we're going, how come we're not buying this yet? It's a cash deal. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. A year later, I get a call from these people, and they said, our financial advisor, no, they got a phone call from a friend saying, I saw that your house is in foreclosure. It's like, how could it be in foreclosure? We paid cash for it. The financial advisor who wrote all this stuff wrote the deed in his name,
Whoa.
took
Whoa.
out aggressive loans that he couldn't pay, and I had to step in so they pretty much lost everything. They were losing. I said they were losing everything. They still
So yes,
had
he
property.
straight up stole their money and
So
everything.
I
Yeah.
had to tell the aggressive, horrible lender, one of these like terrible lenders, oh, we're only going to charge 20% interest, no big deal. That no, you have to stop. I mean, beyond I said, first of all, you shouldn't have been able to do a loan on this thing because the guy whose name it doesn't own it, one of those things. And so and then of course fraud up the wazoo.
Right.
They had to sell. And I said, look, I know I can sell it, which would be, at least they would get something.
Yeah.
But they lost everything. But it was just a horrible thing, out of their control. And so it's almost like, great, you have a financial advisor who does this, but you kind of like need somebody to look at what was done to see that it was done.
Yeah.
And that affected their whole family because he handled other family members. That's horrible stuff. I mean, he called me because I was the only one he trusted, even though he wasn't my buyer. I was a listing agent.
Yeah. And you know this too because you're in real estate, but for people listening, if you ever want to look at your deed online, just go to newhampshiredeeds.com, so NH Deeds, and pull up a registry, type in your name, and you can see your deed.
Except Carroll County. Now, one thing that happens a lot is land fraud. I have gotten 8 to 10. Well, two on one side was someone listing a property he didn't own, and another one, a client who was buying property that was listed through a wholesaler. And he just happened to ask me, can you give me an idea if this land is good and whatever? And I found out within an hour that it was absolute fraud. The person selling it didn't own it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to sometimes get the contact information. And another one, I've had 2 this month. Another one was, and they supply perfect forged driver's licenses.
Oh man, that's so scary.
With the correct information.
That's so scary.
However, one was because you go to the town records and the town always has the correct address of where to send the tax bill. Right. We know that.
Right. They make sure they get that right.
They absolutely know exactly where to send the bill, right? So that's the most relevant information. But so that kind of, and I found a site, I think it was People Data, something.
Yeah.
And I was able to find this guy's phone number, and I had his address. In this case, I didn't have his phone number. I had his address.
Yeah.
And I drove to his house in Maine, and he was 20 minutes away. And you drive down his driveway, and his front door says, "Go away."
Oh man.
Okay. I don't.
You go away? I would have went away. I'm good.
Then I see this guy walking with a gigantic stick and a pit bull, down the driveway.
Yeah. That checks off.
I roll my window down a little bit, and of course, I have a Tesla with the buy-sell as a license plate. So it's like,
oh, no, you don't.
So it's like, okay. And he's looking at me, and I said, "Look, I know you don't know who I am, and I just want you to know that right now someone's trying to sell your land, and I'm sure you're not selling it." And I said, "Here's a picture through the window. Here's the picture of his driver's license, and it has the information of, the what I see is one of your addresses, and it has your name, and he signed a contract with your name on it, which is fraud, of course." And, he's going, "Well, I have to, and then he goes into his safe. He happened to have his driver's license from Massachusetts. I mean, he's in Maine.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect forgery except somebody else's picture,
Wow.
And of course I'm thinking, well, then that guy, that's probably the real person who's the forger, who's trying to steal it. And how do you get to a point? I mean, I involved the sheriff, I involved the cops. And for me, as a real estate agent, a lot of agents just ignore it. Yeah. But I was the first to be able to tell him his identity was breached.
That's wild.
And he could start the process right away. I think that's more important. But he then went to another agent as well. We're gonna have like 5 for sale signs on his land. But God. And that's something, I don't know if that's anything that you do, but I think there could be part of a protection, a trust LLC, something, Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's like, if you're trying to buy or sell, you got to go the right, right process, right? Because I know in New Hampshire, you kind of have wiggle room there. But like you were saying, you need the right professionals in place, especially with real estate now, the value it's at. And then I'm on a scope here. We're talking about like title insurance and all of that, but get all that in place just because you don't know what the chain is and your end, and you don't want to figure it out. You want to have someone do it for you. So, but it is a real thing. It's going to become more of a thing with AI and all that coming out.
Well, yeah. Now, I mean, a basic question, here certainly, if you have your property in an LLC, for instance, or a trust,
Yeah.
the check at closing has to be written to that trust.
Yes.
So I have this thing called the LSP, which sounds like LSD. It's the land scam plan, right? So part of the land scam plan is is to possibly, and I'm trying to create something that makes sense for people that doesn't seem scary.
Yeah.
Different things that can be done. It could be put it in a trust or a revocable trust, apparently. Have a small lien on it because they're only going to go after people that have no liens on the property,
Interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
And of course, the question is, should I participate in a sting? And of course, the advice from the cops was, if you do that, I said, am I creating fraud by writing a listing knowing the guy's fraud? And let's say we get him, the last one, I said, yeah, let's do the closing at the registry of deeds. Little does he know it's right across the street from the county courthouse. So it'd be a short, trip.
Yeah. You'll like it.
But then that might be called entrapment.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I'm not a criminal law attorney. I'm not a real estate attorney, so I don't know any of this stuff. But yeah, this sounds like a CSI episode or something. I like it, but I don't know.
well, yeah, but then then now I'm gonna name this whatever. And now, by the way, I'm getting new text messages. Oh, yeah, your name is listed in this fraud thing, and call us to do blah blah blah. Well, it's another scam. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. I get them every day now. I get spam calls. Get
so a lot of spam calls. Oh, I'm really interested in your property, and my wife and I want to do a Google Meet, to talk about it.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you give me your phone number and I can talk on the phone. Well, as you witness, I can talk.
I mean, it's just it's one of those things that's going to come.
But it seems like that with talking with you, maybe part of the land scam plan by Mike Travis could be an added little protection on whether it's a revocable trust, easy to do, because I would think that's hard to, well, maybe it's harder to find who owns it, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's more confusing. Like if you did a land trust, a realty trust, which are more common in Massachusetts than New Hampshire, but they're becoming a thing up here as well. You can hide the owner, but then again, that could work in the fraudster's favor.
Yeah.
Say, you know what I mean? So, end of the day, fraud is fraud. So,
well, but it's still, so again, another one of these land things is a buyer of mine said, "Can you check out this land?" He was about to prunk $300,000 cash.
Yeah.
Because it was through a wholesaler that they have no due diligence. They don't know. It's just and he could have done that.
Yeah, because it's a cash deal. Yeah,
it's a cash deal, and they say, it's got to be done in 8 days. Of course, it's got to be done in 8 days because it takes 6 days to take the boat across the pond. So, but anyway, there's a lot of valuable information here. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Love to talk to you more. We can come up with more.
Yeah, this is fun. I would definitely do this again, Michael. I'm actually learning from you here because once again, some of the stuff I have no idea about. So it's cool to see. And you have personal stories, which is awesome about it. So,
well, yeah, I mean, being in this business, you see everything. I learn something all the time.
Yeah.
The technology, AI is nuts. If you go to my website, waterfrontagent.com, I have a thing about the fun side of real estate, which is I have all these like great little short AI videos of me riding on the back of a loon or on a moose into the thing. And I mean, selling Barbie and Ken a little thing, or selling a lumberjack, a tree house with a chainsaw, and so.
Yeah, you can do anything. Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, what is frightening is when I said it was through Sora, all that was asked of me to do is take a picture of me like this, and somehow they got my bald spot, which
no,
I didn't know I had. Right, what bald spot? Right, and and then they actually, I didn't write the script. I just kind of gave a scenario, and it created I mean, the thing with the loon, it was my first one. It was absolutely hilarious. And he goes, yeah, right into the sunset. And I'm not even getting my feet wet. And I'm riding on the back of a loon that's the size of a hippo or something. And so it's like, and I even had people say, how did you not get your feet wet? It's like, hello.
There's a lot more going on here.
But it's so realistic,
It is. It's scary. I don't know what I'm looking at. Like, honestly, like even this conversation, like for all we know, we could be AIs. You know what I mean? Like, in this day and age, it's almost impossible to tell. So,
Actually, I got a call from a company. I'm going to look at them. They sent me a thing and they showed me 3 versions of what I should look like that I could choose.
God.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And they're promoting it as, I mean, I think what they're trying to do is promote an AI version of myself talking about real estate.
Yeah.
As a marketing thing,
Yeah, I hear you.
which is okay, but it was frightening how good the AI image was.
Yeah.
And by the way, probably better than me.
It's scary. It's really scary. So.
And so that's just a whole different, that's affecting everybody. And, now it's like affecting the world. So soon none of us will have electricity, because it's all going to some big building in this.
Yeah, it's all being sucked up. But I think
no water.
To kind of bring it full circle, I think what you were saying about the fact that now is more important than ever to be able to meet with an advisor in a certain field that or that your real friends know. You know what I mean? Like this online stuff now is getting to the point where it doesn't matter how it's structured online, like you just can't trust it.
Well, I always say, again, so much of my business by referral from people talking about me,
Exactly.
And hopefully AI can't repeat my humor because my daughter would be traumatized. She's already traumatized,
That'd be a problem. No, I'm the same way as you, though. I mean, gotta get like word of mouth now. It's becoming more and more of a thing just because it has to be. Because like I would say, my entire business now is all either existing clients referring me or professionals I work with referring me, and because that's the only thing they can know because they know the people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I started seeing you could write personal letters in your handwriting to people without writing it.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
The only upside is I knew that my handwriting wasn't going to be the appropriate.
I can't read my own handwriting, so yeah, that would work.
You could have been a doctor.
Yeah, I could have been. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Which is in itself a scary thought that doctors write prescriptions that nobody can read.
Oh yeah, well, that's a whole different story.
That's right. And the statistic that there's more attorneys in the United States than the rest of the world combined.
Oh, I believe that. I think attorneys draft it that way. They make so many rules to kind of pretty much just give themselves jobs, right? Because that's all we're really doing is just making rules and trying to follow them. But
in DC. Well, anyway, it was great meeting you and talking to you. I'm sure there's more. I'd love to just hear more stories.
Oh yeah, no, we gotta definitely do this again. This is fun.
Yeah, because there's so many things that I think people can learn from this.
Yes, especially maybe after in the fall, because through the summer we're gonna have much more stories too. Because this is where everyone's doing all the.
I'm gonna have much more stories by tomorrow, but
okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
It's just another day. It's people don't understand that. What are you doing this weekend? Because I say, what is a weekend? I'm not sure.
It just keeps going.
It's like there is no end. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Waterfront Agent Podcast. I'll be back with some more stories, tips, and expert interviews, and hopefully some humor. So make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.